Good morning, Dr. VP Singh. It's such a pleasure to be hosting you today on my series, which is called Insightful Conversations.
Thank you very much, Meena, for inviting me to your this series of talks and shows. Thank you very much. My pleasure to reconnect with you after, as you said, a couple of years, although we have been interacting with each other virtually.
It's intriguing as an HR professional to see that we are becoming very digitalized in the world, and at the same time, the aspect of human-centric leadership seems to be going through a shift and a change. So today, in this conversation with you, I would like to hear from you on what your perspectives on human-centric leadership is, as also what are your thoughts on happiness at the workplace. Dr. Singh, I've known you for about 3 years, and I have seen you as a person with a rich amount of humor every time we have conversed, a great maturity that you bring to the table. At the same time, the humility that I have observed in all my interactions with you inspired me to invite you to be my guest today. So thank you for being part of this series, and over to you. So my first question to you, Dr. Singh, is if you were to reflect on life, what is your single biggest insight on leadership and humanity?
To respond to the question which you have raised, my response will be as follows. For me, the biggest insight on leadership or humanity is that leaders are that set of people who believe in serving and solving. They are the people who are there to serve and solve problem of a larger audience. I can also say that they are people who are other directed. Their whole initiative, endeavors, pursuits are directed towards others. They are not directed to themselves.
Beautiful.
So they are always looking out. Not that they don't look inside, they do, but most of their initiatives and interventions are on other people. So serving people, solving their challenges, their problems, these are interrelated. So that's the unique thing which they bring to the table. If I can also add that they are the people who believe in non-duality.
Lovely.
They believe that everything is interrelated. So they see themselves in every other human being, or for that matter, any other living matter. So that's my thought process.
Beautiful. So you've beautifully described leadership to be a very interconnected approach to life, if we were to look at it in terms of holistic living, where the leader focuses as much on outside of himself as much as he focuses on himself to drive the required changes outside from a very human perspective. That's so beautiful, a very differentiated thought that I've heard in a while. And thank you so much for that. So moving to the second question, sir. We are living in a very fleeting digital world. What do you think is the role of leaders in building a very human-centric workforce given this context?
So we are living in a world full of paradoxes. We are living in a world which has a lot of contradictions. And it has been always there. It's not that it is a recent phenomenon. But when I look at leadership, I see leadership as a role and contribution where you are managing these contradictions. So on the one hand, if you are typically leader of a corporate entity or a business organization, your focus is obviously on top line, bottom line, so on and so forth. But a leader, not only in business organization, in other kind of organization, is basically a caregiver. A leader is a caregiver. And when I say caregiver, I do not only suggest physical well-being caregiver. So I'm not talking about only the physical care. Yes, that's very important. And especially in coronavirus pandemic situation, that has become very, very prominent, extremely important. But a leader is also a caregiver in terms of three other intelligences. Physical intelligence, of course, taking care of body, etc. The leader is also focusing on how to build your knowledge, skill, capabilities, competencies so that you can do well. So leader is there as a caregiver for improving emotional and mental capabilities of people.
Beautiful.
So I see leadership as basically handling four intelligences. Normally, we see that leaders are only focused on mental intelligence. They are basically focused on how to make their people agile, business-oriented, so on and so forth. But a great leader also works on physical intelligence, physical well-being, emotional well-being, mental well-being, and of course, lastly but not the least, spiritual intelligence, which is not only God or Khuda or Allah, but your ability to connect with larger and bigger power system. And thereby, the leaders make a human-centric workforce or a team. So it's a holistic approach. It is not only being nice, or looking after only one aspect of human existence, but totality of human domains a leader would focus on, and thereby bring about and build a human-centric organization.
Beautiful, sir. I think the biggest insight and takeaway for me in this is that a leader is a caregiver, and he looks at multiple intelligence of his people to be built as they sail through organizations. That's so beautifully summarized. So, sir, I also know that now teams are working remote. Almost every organization seems to be saying that, we are going to permit or encourage workforces to work from home, and which is very different from the era perhaps that you were exposed to, where remote working was not as often seen. So given this scenario, how do you think leaders should influence in building a high-performing workforce, even if people are working remotely?
So, Meena, the leaders of modern era or contemporary times, they are very lucky and fortunate because they have technology. They have technology. Leaders of 1980s or 70s or 60s, even early 90s, they did not have technology. Today you have technology, and technology can reach you, outreach you in every nook and corner of the world. So for example, if you are a leader, I'm just giving an example. If you were a leader of Procter & Gamble, if you are a chief executive of Procter & Gamble in 1960, it was almost impossible for you to interact with people who were in Bangladesh or in Afghanistan or Vietnam. Today, if you are chief executive of Procter & Gamble, you can connect with every person on every street of your organization. So you are so lucky, you are so fortunate that you can connect. And that is something a leader has to leverage. That's number one. Number two. So feel that you are so powerful, you have so much, power in your hand. I would also say that a great leader is not really too much bothered about what results are coming. Yes, that's important. What a great leader is interested in building a relationship with his team and continuously asking two things. What are you doing? And how I can help you?
Lovely.
What are you doing? How I can help you? So you are selling toothpaste? Great. How I can help you? You are selling toothpaste in, say, Kanpur or Trichy or Cochin? Great, wonderful. So what are your challenges? How I can help you? If this dialogue can be enacted and repeated every time, you are really empowering and you are really helping them to deliver their best. Don't bother about performance review too much. It will happen. It will happen. It is like, if you are, say, a coach of an Indian cricket team and you are playing World Cup, you don't talk all the time about winning. Your focus is on the process.
Beautiful.
The winning is the outcome of the process which you follow.
Beautiful.
That destination cannot kind of obsess you.
Lovely.
If you get obsessed, you will lose.
Lovely.
Like India lost to New Zealand in semi-final. Because till that time, they were winning all the matches. And probably they got too obsessed that we have to win the World Cup. And they lost. The process is important. That's number one. Number two, a leader in this world of technology also believes in optimism combined with realism. So a leader practices what we call brutal realism. He is hopeful that things will become better, but then he doesn't take that for granted.
Lovely.
And therefore, he focuses on the process, which will ensure that brutal realism facilitates you to reach your destination and goal. So, what are you doing and how I can help you?
Beautiful.
This has to be mantra of a leader. And fortunately, a lot of great leaders do that day in, day out. They do that.
That's just such a different perspective, and I could not expect anything else from you, sir. So, this leads me to the question. You beautifully talked about mentoring or supporting an individual with those two questions, which is the biggest pathway a person can actually move towards. So that brings me to the next question. You've been a mentor to several leaders in your life, and how do you see, or how important is mentorship and mentoring in the workplace of today? Do you see it important? Would you have any example that you could share where it has powerfully impacted leaders in organizations?
So, mentorship is definitely a vital contributor in terms of enhancing leadership effectiveness. And there are numerous examples and illustrations. I will only say that it is definitely a vital process. And great leaders have always found a mentor for themselves. It is still not become very prevalent in corporate world, although it has become a little popular during last 5, 6, 10 years, but it was not very popular in terms of structured mentorship. Unstructured mentorship was always there, but structured mentorship is something of recent phenomena. Coaching is a new phenomena. At least in India, it has been there for only hardly 15, 20 years, not much. So mentorship is definitely important, and uh, I would also like to say that when we use the word mentorship or mentoring, it doesn't only connote a human being as a mentor or somebody who's alive as a mentor. You could have somebody who's not around you, but he or she by the spirit mentors you.
Beautiful.
Now, for example, you could say that probably Nelson Mandela or Gandhi, or you choose whoever is your ideal role model, and you observe that person's life history, and you find out cues and data points, and you bring it within yourself. So a mentor can be an alive, somebody with around you, but also can be a distance and not alive, and learn from him and follow or emulate his leadership practice, and then thereby grow. So that's how I look at mentorship.
Beautiful. Again, whenever I have spoken about mentorship or heard from people, I have always got this perspective of mentors who are living. Now, you're bringing a completely different aspect and thought around people who can still be mentors when they're not around, and they're still shadowing, or you're shadowing them to learn still and evolve still. That's fantastic, sir. So, you've looked at several evolutions of organizations in your consulting, space, during your teaching assignments. And so when you're looking at these evolutions, are you seeing leadership also is evolving with times? Do you see leadership is becoming relevant and contextual? And again, given the reality of today, why do you think happiness is becoming a focus now?
Happiness has been always the focus, Meena. It has come back at the center stage during last 10 years. It was always there. If you look back at any scripture, irrespective of the fact what is your faith, every scripture, every faith talks about happiness. In our Indian traditions or Hindu traditions, we talk about Satchit Anand. So the concept of bliss is there. And also happiness is the ultimate goal. And all philosophers, all great writers, they have said that the basic purpose of human life is happiness. The purpose of human life is happiness, and of course, not only his or her own happiness, but happiness of their constituency, their people, their network. So happiness has been always important, and unfortunately, this has become, I don't know, unfortunately is the right word or not. This has come to limelight primarily because during last 15, 20 years in particular, or maybe a little more, probably during last 30 odd years, when the technology has overtaken our lives, we have somehow got disconnected with larger and grand designs of nature.
Sure.
We have got disconnected with nature around us. And we are today talking about happiness primarily because we have lost moorings, we have lost our anchor. Technology has overtaken us, speed has overtaken us, and therefore people are realizing that they have to come back, because after all, purpose of life is happiness. Purpose of life is to achieve bliss. So I'm not surprised that people are realizing it's good for all of us. And we must also keep in mind that when we are talking about happiness, happiness has many manifestations, and your happiness will come when you basically live a complete life, a wholesome life. And your and my life is not only to pursue happiness. The purpose of human life, if we go by Hindu scriptures, is dharma, arth, Kam, Moksha. Dharma, to live a life, a righteous life. Earth, our purpose of our life is to generate wealth. If we do not generate wealth, this universe will not rotate on its axis. Third, calm, enjoying your life, that's happiness. And moksha is ultimate liberation. The final bliss or happiness is that you are liberated. You are not encumbered. You are not in a bond. That's happiness. That you are free spirit, like a bird, like animal in a jungle, which is not governed by any law, which is absolutely unfettered. That's happiness. A flower, a tree, you see them dancing every moment because they are happy.
So there's so much about living in the present that I get when you compare the trees, the birds, and how they enjoy every minute. And at the same time, you're talking about an extreme Satchitanand, which is the ultimate form of happiness, which is bliss, and so much of interconnected that exists between the two. So, if I were to ask you, sir, what is one thing that makes you absolutely happy? What would that be?
That's a very good question. What makes me happy? What makes me happy is that that providence, the God, that nature has given me so much. And it has given each one of us so much. We do not realize how much we have in our bank account. And when I say bank account, I don't mean Axis Bank or SDFC Bank account. That also. So again, going back to those four intelligences. For example, I am now 70, I am getting into 71. I'm so grateful that I'm 70-year-old, I'm alive, I'm alert mentally. I work, I spend time with young people, experienced people, leaders like you, students from business school. The God has been kind that I have good health. I'm thankful. So that gives me happiness. I also feel happy that I am in company of young people like you, and there is a reverse mentoring, reverse coaching happening. I'm learning from you. So that also gives me happiness, and that keeps me alive. Thirdly, learning from each other in terms of learning emotions, feelings, sentiments. And lastly, continuously interacting and connecting with trees, flowers, animals. I live in a place, from my house, I'm sitting right now and I can see about half a kilometer from my balcony, a paddy field.
Wow.
Of course, this is not a time for paddy. So about 2 months back, 3 months back, I could see mustard fields.
Wow.
And I don't have to walk down, but every evening I go there and I'm connected with nature. And that gives me so much of happiness. So what I'm saying, that this sense of gratitude, that I have been given so much, let me handle that. That itself is too much. I'm so grateful for everything which has happened to me, rather than looking at the reverse, that what I don't have. I definitely would like to strive. I would definitely like to have more, but I'm also simultaneously mindful, as you said, mindful of the fact that God has been kind, that powerful system, even if I don't call it God, has given me so much, and let me be grateful to Him. Let me be grateful to people around me. Let me be grateful to Meena, who is spending half an hour with me. Let me be grateful to my son, my daughter, my wife, my neighborhood. which has really given me so much of significance. So the life has meaning, and every human life is nothing but a search for meaningfulness. And when you are on that journey of searching meaning, you are happy and you realize that you are nothing but grateful. There is so much of gratitude inside me. I will encourage everyone, and this is not something from my side, that research was carried out about 20, 30 years back, and they were talking about mindfulness and emotional intelligence, and they said that those who are physically, mentally happy people, one of the things which they do is that they write a gratitude journal. They write what is going right in their life. They thank the people in their life who have added value and meaning. So you continuously thank them for giving whatever you have with you. And that gives you a lot of satisfaction, peace, tranquility, happiness, whatever you call it. And in the process, you will live probably 10 years more than otherwise, and thereby contribute, support, help, serve, solve the problem of people around you.
I just cannot thank you enough. And I'm very grateful that you are in my life, sir. It was just providence that we met, but extremely grateful that I have such a knowledgeable mentor sitting right in front of me who's been able to share the deepest perspectives with such simplicity that I'm sure this is going to be absorbed by the generation of today as much as the generation of yesteryears. So thank you so much for consenting to be part of this show, and hope through this interview series and with this special interview with you, the world of humanity, the world of happiness, and the world of gratitude increases day after day. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
You also. And my last final parting words will be thank you very much for being part of my life also. And when people meet each other, it is not coincidence. In life, there is nothing called coincidence. Unfortunately, we cannot find the connections. We cannot observe and decipher the connections. There is always a cause and effect which is not visible to us. So when people meet, so Dr. V.P. Singh and Meena, if we are meeting and talking, there is a connection. There is a cause, there is the effect. And if you can find that cause and effect relationship, you will be so grateful to everybody around you. I am grateful to you, Meena, for calling me, for inviting me, and I look forward to another opportunity to interact with you. Absolutely. Meanwhile, I wish everyone who is listening, watching this broadcast, all the best, and probably, hopefully, they will draw some conclusion to make their own leadership a lot more effective in whichever constituency they are working. So, thank you very much.
Thank you and namaste, sir.